Hey, so the Complete Guide to Jousting 5th edition is live right now on Kickstarter, and you should go support it. It has rules for combat, jousting, mounts, bonding with mounts, and a bunch of great stuff. So check it out, support it. Anyways, Bob Carter, take us away to the sexy intro.
In the following presentation, you'll learn wisdom, insight, perception, and how to carry yourself with class, albeit armor class. The Big Bad Dungeon invites you to come in, take notes, roll for initiative, and prepare to get schooled.
All right. So, the Complete Guide to Jousting 5th edition is live on Kickstarter right now, today, here on
Somewhere
Dungeon
down.
School.
Click.
We have the distinct pleasure of speaking to Kevin Fanning at Kefa Studios. Kefa Studios, the publishers of the absolutely beautiful Banners of Honor adventure for 5th edition. Kevin, what's up, man?
Oh, I'm just every single day doing everything I can to get eyeballs on Complete Guide to Jousting Kickstarter, which is live right now. And yeah, I'm so happy to be here and talk to you guys about all of the projects that we have. And like I said, just trying to build that audience, build that community.
There's a lot. There's so much that's in this supplement. You've got mounts, you've got rules, you've got backgrounds, you've got so much stuff. I'm a huge fan of A Knight's Tale. It was a big part of my growing up, my formative years.
Yeah, 100%.
I've watched it a few times recently. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. It's the only like jousting movie, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so good.
It's so fun.
So, how did you put together these rules, and what kind of stuff can folks who back this Kickstarter look forward to getting?
Okay, so the original jousting rules we put together for Banners of Honor.
Mhm.
They're pretty simple. We knew we wanted to have jousting for our knights, and it was more of a mini game that we created, but I wanted you to be able to ride more than just horses. So we created this keyword system that affects how well your mounts can be handled in the joust, right? So, like a giant scorpion is a lot more unruly than a horse, for example. All of these creatures can be trained and bonded with to increase their abilities in the joust. And it was very role play based in Banners of Honor. It was like, if you do a good job caring for your mount, the dungeon master should reward you with a higher level of training, right? The mechanics themselves, we knew that we didn't want only melee characters to be able to be successful at jousting. It was important that druids and wizards and whoever else be able to win the jousting competition. That's why we incorporated the animal handling check and also the saves to be tossed off of your mount if you take a blow. So that there are a lot of different areas of the joust where some characters are strong and other characters are weak, and vice versa. So the characters that are really good at striking their opponent, for example, are usually not the best at like handling their mount, right? So a druid that's bonded with her bear mount, for example, can be a very powerful. My friend Alicia, she actually won our jousting tournament with the druid on a bear. So that was a real eye opener for us that we had a winning concept that any character could be very successful. And yeah, it was pretty bare bones for Banners of Honor. So honestly, my next project is something that I've had burning in the back of my mind for several years already. It was under advice of my friend Janet at World Anvil. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Hell yeah.
We did the D20 cruise to promote Banners of Honor and run some events, and we met Janet, had breakfast with her, and she told me you've already built an audience with knights and jousting. So like the next step is to do like a splat book, right? So as much as I wanted to do like another big project, I listened and took the advice of people that have been doing this much longer than me. And to be perfectly honest, I was kind of over writing about knights after doing 157,000 words for Banners of Honor. But when I started digging into this and having fun with it, I was like, I'm so reinvigorated right now that I'm literally waiting for Sammy to wrap up the campaign he's running so that I can run Banners of Honor with the new jousting mechanics that we've created for a complete guide to jousting.
So tell me about this bonding mechanic, because
Yeah,
I
that's my
have
favorite
many
thing.
pets. Yeah,
That's
I want to hear about how it works, how it plays out. Like how do you guys have it set up
the
to tap into the
Okay.
rules?
So
coolest. It is the coolest thing.
we've recently been making some adjustments to this because the new 2024 rules were just released. We want everything to be in line with that. We don't want our book to be outdated the moment it's released, right? So we actually put a pause on release for several months while we waited for these books to come out. And I'm so glad that we did, because humans now get heroic inspiration every long rest, right? So our original mechanic involved using your inspiration to attempt a bonding check with your mount during a long rest, right? Usually characters only get one inspiration per game session, or possibly more if they're, doing really well with the role play or something. At our house, we forget to do it, so everybody starts with inspiration, and that's kind of the only inspiration you get.
Yeah.
So it was a really good mechanic for me because it didn't rush the bonding mechanic, so you couldn't just do it, really quickly. It was important that this be like a long-term investment. The new human rules, of course, made that a little tougher because now humans get an inspiration at the end of every long rest. And of course, so it seems like they could bond with their creature very quickly while everyone else is struggling. So to counteract that, we just suggested that once you attempt this check, whether you're successful or not, you can't make the same check until the next game session or another time period that works for your group to try to stretch this out. But it basically revolves around the game master sets the DC for this animal handling check during a long rest, and it's based on the conditions that your mount has been under over the last day or several days of travel. Has there been combat? Have they been injured? Have they been stressed? Have you been role playing with them and caring for them? For each different type of mount, we have a list of role playing suggestions for different ways to bond with your mount, right? So for like a giant lizard, for example, sometimes it's letting them explore their natural instincts, right? Allowing them to hunt and to chase prey, and encouraging that behavior instead of just trying to feed them and whatever. Traditionally, you always want to like groom your horses and brush them down and things of that nature. So for each different type of creature, we have a list of 5 or so different suggestions for ways that you can bond with your creature through role play, and the dungeon master can still take that into account when setting the DC for these checks. But ultimately, it's bonding level 1, 2, and 3, and it gives you a bonus to your animal handling check of +1, 2, or 3 in the joust.
That's
Hell
awesome. Yeah. I love the fact that there are like over 40 new creature mounts for this. Like you mentioned early on, like giant scorpion, and I saw the art for that. It's sick.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing ever. Who wouldn't want to ride a giant scorpion? Like, yeah, horses are great, but they're like big cats. What about a real big cat? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's so cool. What's your favorite one that you guys came up with?
Let me open. I just closed a bunch of tabs while I'm running this Kickstarter, but let me open this back up and talk a little bit about a couple of these different mounts, because the truth is there were a few different types of creatures that we really thought worked well for jousting, such as the giant goat and the axe beak, the dire wolf, and horses, etc. Let me focus on this for just 1 second.
Hell yeah, direwolf do murder. I love that. And the axe beak, that's absolutely terrifying.
I'm all on board with goat. Like big ass goat. Yes.
All right. So what we did was we created 5 different breeds for each one of these creatures, and adjusted their CR level from 1 to 3. So like a CR 3 is the highest level of mount that we have for this new book, right? They're very expensive. They're hard to train. They're very powerful outside of the joust, right? And we also have, for a few different of these, flying variants. So we have, of course, a Pegasus for the equestrians. And then for the giant lizards, we do have a flying variant giant lizard. We have a giant owl variant. And we kept those at CR2. So some of the creatures that don't fly, like dire wolves, for example, they'll have a couple of different options for a CR3 breed to make up for the fact that they don't get a flying option. So they can't compete in the flying joust, which is one of our optional rules. But let me just go over, I don't know, you want to do dire wolves?
Hell yeah. Let's do a giant wolf.
Yeah. Let's do a big barky boy.
All right, so we have 5 breeds here: the Bloodfang, Dreadfur, a Moon Howler, and a Sentinel, and a Shadow Prowler. All right, and they each have different stats to help them get to the correct CR level. So Bloodfang is CR1, Dreadfur and Moon Howler are both 2s, and Sentinel and Shadow Prowler are CR3s. So CR2, for example, let's see. He's got an ability called a Lunar Howl. Once per long rest, he can grant himself and allies within 20 feet temporary hit points equal to 1d10 plus 2.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's rad.
So he's kind of, can take the place of a low-level healer in the party. But don't forget, every one of these awesome new mounts that you and your party mates get to ride, like the enemies get to ride them too.
Yeah.
Right? So it adds a whole different level of complexity. It can bog down combat a little bit if everybody's mounted, but we have some variant mounted combat rules that'll just allow you to give up your bonus action to give your mount one of their actions during combat. So that will help speed things up quite a bit, I think.
So it sounds like you've also like kept in mind like game balance and making sure that folks that want to use these rules like they're going to be able to slot them right in, and they're gonna flow together with their game. How much testing have you guys done with all of this stuff?
So including the testing that we did for Banners of Honor for the basic jousting mechanics, well over a year. Solid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We did multiple jousting tournaments for Banners of Honor here, with my home game group. And then Sammy and I took it on the D20 cruise and ran events with jousting. Everyone had a blast. Like, some of the best compliments I got was just like how they were sitting on the edge of their seats, like tense during the game session, but for the best possible reasons, So I felt like we really had lightning in a bottle there with just the base jousting mechanics. And then I really wanted to dig into the bonding mechanics in particular, and just expand upon something I wanted to do in Banners of Honor was to have these multiple different breeds of each creature. Like I said, the book's already almost 300 pages. Like we had to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
One of the things I think that's really, really cool in Complete Guide to Jousting is that you've taken into consideration players outside of the joust as well.
Yes.
Like, there's tournament events for non-participating players. That's so smart, because I've run a bunch of games where there's like tourneys that'll happen or things like that, and had to come up with rules for what's happening in the tournament, but also stuff to keep the other players engaged. And having that like all in one place is amazing. Kind of what gave you the idea to do that, and what are some of those events that people can look forward to?
So exactly that is what gave me the idea, is just having sat at tables before where you're like, oh, I'm not participating. So, people will play on their phones or whatever else is going on at the table. Let me open. So the book is like 80 to 90% complete right now. We're editing. We've got to do layout. We definitely don't have enough artwork. So we've been doing some marketing magic with the few pieces of artwork that we have. And that's what this Kickstarter is about, is just getting the budget to not only, finish this book and deliver something strong using real art, never AI, but also try to fund, some future projects. But where were we? That's NPCs. I'm on the wrong. Okay, so some of the events that we've got here. Sorry, I've been all over the place.
There's no problem.
Don't worry, that's what we have an editor for.
Yeah.
Thank you, Keith.
All right, so some of the optional things include like one of the contestants goes missing, right?
Ooh,
so
yeah.
One of the knights doesn't show up for his joust. His opponent declares victory, and then you have to go investigate. Where did he go? What happened to him? Is it possible to get him back in the tournament, or does somebody maybe have to put that helmet on and take his place? And there could be some nefarious, reasons for why he's not there. We also have bookies in the crowd taking bets. Some of them are honest, some of them are less than honest, right? So maybe they've paid a heavily favored knight to take a dive and split the profits, right? And he's out there encouraging everyone that this guy's unbeatable. So we definitely wanted to have some things like that. there's a situation where an assassination can happen in the crowd, maybe near your characters, maybe so near that you're accused, right? So you're just there minding your business, watching the joust, and suddenly you're swept into this whole other thing. And that's just one of the ways. We have these. It's kind of like a random event table that you can apply to any tournament. But beyond that, we have a whole list of 10 peasant and 10 noble NPC characters that all have suggested interactions with characters. So we've got like a noble merchant type who is in acquisitions for rare magical items. So maybe he's interested in the particular magic item that is, the trophy for the champion of the joust. Maybe that's the award. So he could hire a jouster to, compete for him in the tournament. He could hire a less than honest character to maybe find a way to acquire this item for him, outside of the realm of the tournament. So we'd always try to find ways to keep it engaging. But at the core, I know that the jousting mechanics are solid. So I just wanted to dress it up as much as possible.
Yeah, you need to put like a nice hat on top of that to complete the suit, right? Like you've got the suit and the shoes, you need the hat. And from the sound of it, it's like a big old fancy church hat. Like all of this stuff looks really awesome, honestly. I'm a Ren Fair kid, and like David was talking about earlier about why did I just forget the name of that movie? Because First Night.
A Knight's Tale?
Or A Knight's Tale. Yeah, sorry. A Knight's Tale. Yeah. I love that movie. I love like Arthurian mythos, which Banners of Honor is like heavily seems like it draws from. Because I just grew up around that stuff. A lot of my family lives in the UK, so that's kind of like.
Oh, have you seen the Green Knight movie?
Yes.
Hated it.
It's so good. And
I hated it so much.
There's a mini boss in Banners of Honor called the Blue Knight, and he's like instead of a forest elemental knight, he's like a water elemental knight. And like there's a lot of inspiration taken from Arthurian legend in that book, but he's my absolute favorite of our mini bosses that we created. One of my favorite pieces of art for that book. But I don't know, it's just a lot of fun flavor in that guy that hopefully more people will get to see.
I'm such a bad person. I did not love that movie, but that's because at the time I was doing an in-depth study of the actual original poem. So
it's like takes everything in reverse.
I had like one of those like crossfade moments where I was like, I don't understand what's happening because this isn't like the book at all, and that's my fault.
Yeah. No, I think I appreciated. I think I can't remember which is which, but either in the original short story, he succeeds at everything until the very end and fails, and then in the movie he fails at everything along the way. And then succeeds. Yeah.
Yeah, they flip it on its head. The fox in the movie is the best character, though. We can all agree that the fox guide is the bomb.
I need to watch that movie again. I watched it while I was making banners, and
yeah.
So as far as the process for making Banners of Honor, like how did that happen? Like I guess like what was that brainstorming? Like what was the lightning that happened there that got you thinking in the direction of putting like this adventure together for 5th edition?
All right. So years ago I volunteered at a board game magazine, and I was just trying to do board game reviews and like some painting tutorials like old school like White Dwarf magazine would have.
Hell yeah.
And it ended up not really going anywhere, but I did learn some valuable like editing skills. Like I worked closely with the editor. I ended up taking on way more responsibilities than I intended to for that project, and in the end it was a good learning experience that paid off later. So a friend of mine, Angelo Peluso, he created the Nightfell RPG system. And while he was running the Kickstarter, I was painting every day on Patreon during COVID. We were all shut down.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm painting on stream every day and just like finding other D&D products to highlight, because at the time I was just painting a different D&D model every single day and then working to engage my audience by like building a backstory for this character. What are these items that he's got on him, etc. And so spotlighting his Kickstarter, he was so excited, that I was showing the video and talking to people about it, that he like jumped into my stream and hung out for a bit, and we got to be buddies. He sent me a free preview of the English translation of his book. and it was in pretty rough shape, if I'm honest. Like I messaged him and I was like, hey man, like this thing has a lot of problems. And I let him know, I was like, I didn't go to school for editing. I'm not a professional, but I do have some limited experience and I can make it better than it is right now. You know, I was like, if you're interested in hiring me to work as an editor, I took like a very bare minimum, like intro level fee for this so I could, you know, get some credit and experience. And he ended up hiring me for all 3 books.
Hell yeah.
So while I'm editing other, you know, RPG products, I start realizing like, oh, I kind of have a skill for this. Like I'm reading what other people are doing and I'm realizing that like not only am I capable of doing this, I think I'm capable of doing this at a high level. So through that editing job, he recommended me to another game company in Italy called Mana Project Studio. And I also did the editing for Seven Sinners RPG. Both of those books were nominated and awarded Ennies at Gen Con. So I'm very proud of those. Yeah. You know, I played a very small part in that success, but I'm very, very happy that I was involved in the projects, made a lot of really important friends and connections while working on those projects. But it also gave me the confidence that I could do something like that for myself. So I looked at the things that Grim Moon Studio Nightfell was doing really, really well. And what they did exceptionally well was the artwork, right? Some of the most beautiful artwork I've ever seen. So basically, I got with Angelo and I hired his entire art team to work on my project for Banners of Honor. We have many of the same artists, including Angelo, did some pieces for Banners of Honor. And so that was kind of my strategy was I'll do the things that they did really well and copy it over, and then I'll do the writing myself. And you know, I took a lot of inspiration from The Curse of Strahd, just the format and layout of that, you know, where you, especially the towns, right, where it's like gives you the descriptions and then all the things that can happen while you're in town. I think it's the best, probably official D&D product that's ever been produced. It's certainly my favorite. That's why I've got this giant like Curse of Strahd section on my wall in front of me here. But yeah, so I did a majority of the writing. There were certain things that I had never done before. I had never written a dungeon before. I was really good at like creating a town and all these different locations and explaining things. But as far as like a dungeon that's designed to whittle down resources and challenge, you know, players and then have like an ultimate like set piece in the end, I had never created something like that before. So probably our coolest dungeon in Banners of Honor is an underwater castle. And I hired Joshua Perry. I'm trying to remember. He has a pen name that he used when he was writing RPGs, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. I know it's not JP Sachs. That's a musician that I follow. But anyway, I hired him to write this chapter for us. And then I got to see his process, like the way he outlined it and the way he, you know, and so I just paid somebody who was better than me and then like learned side by side alongside him. So then for the other dungeons in the book, I wrote them and I just used, you know, what I learned from him and built upon that in my own way. So basically I've been learning everything the hard way, right? So Banners of Honor, Sammy and I invested $20,000 in our own money just to get it to Kickstarter, right? We were just like, let's buy all the art. We're going to need it anyway. And it was so we kept a lot of people, you know, happily employed for like a whole year, making artwork for us. And we had so much fun doing it. But in the end, you know, we couldn't use all of those images for the Kickstarter. We couldn't use all of them for marketing. We overspent on the front end. And then what ended up happening was, in order to break even, we have to recoup the 20 grand that we spent. We have to recoup the production costs, the layout. We paid for professional, animation for our Kickstarter page and graphic design. We were in for kind of a lot. And so our break even number was pretty high for Banners of Honor. We got to a situation where we were not at break even with Banners of Honor. So we had to make some choices. we decided we'll just take the L on the money that we invested and deliver the absolute best product that we could, right? We took absolutely no shortcuts. Everything, we're like, if the Kickstarter goes this well, we did all of those things. We just funded most of it with our own money plus the Kickstarter funds and made not a single dollar. And but I believe this is one of those products that has a long tail. There are still millions of D&D players who have no idea that Banners of Honor exists, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Jonathan, he's the owner of AAW Games. He said every single year, the Rise of the Drow is his number one selling product, and it's years old at this point, right?
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful book, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I have one of those products. Like, this will be the flagship of my company for many years to come. So that's also part of the reason why we're offering it in this Complete Guide to Jousting Kickstarter, is because I have a pallet of them in my garage I need to sell, right?
That's fair. 100%.
I need to get eyeballs on this project. But I'm no regrets, right? Because every single person that's seen this book has been impressed with it. Every single backer that has received it has been blown away. I mean, when you open the book, of course, it's in the trunk of my car because I just had a book signing. I normally have one sitting right next to me, but it's a big book. I don't know if either one of you backed it, but it's a pretty heavy tome with heavyweight paper, which was we kind of lucked out on that. Our production team accidentally used more expensive paper than we ordered, and they were like, that's on us.
That's a great accident to have happened.
So it probably increased the shipping cost a little bit, but it's so beautiful. Like, it was worth it.
Also, you guys were funded in 24 hours, which is like, that's huge. Even though you had to eat some of the costs and stuff, I think from my perspective, just looking at the book and things I've seen from it and everything I've been researching about it, I think it was worth it, because I think you're right. You made a phenomenal book that has massive longevity. Like, it's not just like a flash in the pan single win scenario. You guys invested so much time and resources and creative energy into making something truly, truly good that will withstand time. And plus, it, fully funded in 24 hours, over 600 backers, 658, I think was the number I was looking at, and a really cool story, and a world that you're able to spin off of, like Complete Guide to Jousting comes out of that. I think that's such a cool place to be in. I think you guys really killed it.
Thank you.
Really killed it. The art is so good.
Yeah, 100%.
It's so good.
Very, very proud of the art and the entire team of artists that worked on that. One of the things that so important to me, like, first and foremost, I'm a miniature painter. I've been painting minis since I was like 14 years old. I compete at Gen Con just about every year. I teach classes there. I travel and teach miniature painting classes. So when I started seeing things like, we'll 3D print your miniature in color, I was like, ew, I don't like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I recognize that as of right now, they can't do what I can do, right? But
they're not going to be able to.
I sure hope not. But the technology creep is a little bit scary. So when I started seeing people just typing, give me an elf lady with a sword, right? And like, boom, they get artwork, and they're like, I'm creating a D&D book now. And I'm like, am I allowed to swear? Because
100%. This is, I was keeping it clean to make sure you could use it everywhere you want to use it. But if you want to lay it down, man, lay it down. I love that.
The reason I feel so important that we have to support artists with real art and spend our money, spend those extra dollars, is because it's a dying craft. And these people that are just latching onto this technology, they're not going to make it. Their products all look the same. They look lifeless. They have no soul. And like, I fucking hate to admit it, but the AI art can produce some like sharp looking images, and then when you look closer, like, things are just off. Things are always just a little iffy. I have to believe that real art is going to win out. That this claymation, Frankenstein monster that the AI generates is not the future. So I'm doing everything the hard way, and I'm up against an ocean of people that are kind of half-assing this job. and think they're going to be successful. I just disagree with their entire philosophy, and yeah, we'll see what happens in the end. But
I think that from that side, I think that that's like a really strong stance to take. Hashtag support artists, right? Is that where that comes in?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a strong stance to take, and I think what that's going to do in the long run for people that do that is create really strong community foundations, because you're working with real people and you're expanding things to be connected with real people, and eventually we're going to reach like a headway with the AI stuff and all of that, where like it's gonna start failing, I think, because it's so derivative. There's a certain point where it can't derive anything from its
New,
derivations. Right. Yeah, it can't have anything new. And people are always going to be more creative than a machine. Like all day. And I think the kind of people, like, one of the cool things I think about Banners of Honor and Complete Guide to Jousting is that it has both of them have like a tone to it that invites a type of person to come play it. And that type of person are the people that are going to appreciate real art as opposed to AI art. Like, I think you've done a really good job of just building a sort of platform for a community to stand on, right? I mean, like, A Knight's Tale, right? We keep talking about that, but like people that like that movie are going to like this book, and people that like that movie have a certain viewpoint and have a certain stance, and it's got like a timeliness to it that dictates how people feel about certain things like real art and AI and all that stuff. So I think that you've done something pretty awesome here. I think that
thank you.
It's also a cool world. Like, can we ask you about like where Kirill came to come from, and like,
oh man,
how you got those ideas?
A lot. Like, I've got a sketchbook around here somewhere that's just got, like pencil drawings of maps and things that I had made. It's more like I wanted to have my own homebrew setting, and it was just so much work to like keep track of all of that, and my D&D group and my painting commissions. And so it wasn't really until I was like, I'm going to do this, for a job, that I was able to like sit down and do it for real. Before that, it was like just bits and pieces of it that I had come up with. The name, I don't even know where it came from. Like it was just something that had been floating around in my head for a while. Same with a lot of the cities. I think Valicia is one of the cities in Banners of Honor. I used it. I wrote a one shot for my home group, and that was the name of the city. And it was just like sitting in a notebook somewhere, and I was just like, oh yeah, I used that before. Like I'll put it in here and, like put it on steroids and do something else with it. So I just like pulled bits and pieces from my notes, from my DM notes and my player notes over the years, and cobbled it together. But like the general layout of the map, I sketched it and then sent it to the artist, and they turned it into something beautiful. And like that's like the coolest thing for me, because I'm really good at painting 3D objects, but like I don't draw very well. I can draw like a comic book character if I'm looking at it, but to be able to just like, this is kind of my idea, and then send it to somebody, and then they bring back like this absolute stunning piece of art, and I'm just like, I hope I don't run out of money, because this is fun.
Yeah. So where did this like love for gaming, like where did that all start for you? Like
for me, it started with Warhammer Fantasy.
Hell yeah.
So when I was a kid, I watched Braveheart for the first time, and was just absolutely, just overwhelmed with how exciting the giant battles were with these guys charging across the field. So when I saw Warhammer Fantasy for the first time, and I was like, oh, it's like Braveheart, but with like goblins and elves, I couldn't be more excited about. Like, I remember planning, like, I'm going to get a summer job. They only pay kids minimum wage, but I'm going to do like 40 hours a week, and this is how much money I'll make, and this is how the armies I'll be able to buy. Of course, none of that happened, but I was just obsessed with it. I would like go around the neighborhood washing cars to try to like go buy a new codex or something for, armies. And I started playing Warhammer just, for that big battle experience. And it wasn't until I started going to tournaments, and then they were like, oh, by the way, we have a special trophy for whoever's got the best painted model in their army. Then I was like, oh, maybe I should try to paint one really good. Like I always painted my troops, but it was just like, base, wash, dry brush, whatever. So once I started really focusing on painting them better, I realized that like I really do have a passion for like the artistic side of it. And then I was kind of late getting to the internet. I didn't have a computer in my life until I was in my 20s, So once I discovered Facebook pages, they were like, send us pictures and we'll give you feedback. And like the first feedback I got was like, you need a better phone because that's a shitty picture. Okay. So once I was able to like learn and get feedback, at that pace, like internet pace, I grew so quickly as an artist. I started winning competitions and awards and stuff. And then I started doing commissions basically just to pay for my my painting hobbies and my board game hobbies. And the board game magazine, I started going to Gen Con, being excited about all these different board games. That was a huge part of my life, for a while. And then when I found Dungeons and Dragons, it kind of replaced all the board games, right? So it's like, oh, you want to play a pirate game? We can play D&D. You want to play a game with knights and wizards? Like we can play D&D. So it's like, no matter what kind of board game you had, you could role play something similar. And it just felt more rewarding to me. So
I definitely
became life.
vibe with that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, man. Well, certainly it's been the greatest pleasure talking with you today.
Awesome.
And folks should go out. You guys should support a complete guide to Jousting 5th edition, which is like
Banners of Honor.
Yeah, pick up Banners of Honor.
Also, find Kevin at conventions and learn how to paint minis like a freaking boss, because your minis are sick.
Thank you. Yeah. After the call, maybe we hang out and talk about painted minis and
hell yeah.
Totally.
100%.
Yeah. Where can folks like find you at conventions coming up? Do you have anything coming up?
Currently, I don't have any conventions planned at the moment. Until March, I think I'll be at Adepticon, which is moving to Wisconsin this year instead of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be at Gen Con in Indianapolis every year. But find me on all social media as Kefa Studios. That's Kefa. It's like Kevin Fannin, Kefa. KefaStudios.com. You can see all of the products. You can see some of our miniature art. We have links to my newsletter and Kickstarter. And we are right now like $300 away from reaching our $10,000 funding goal for a complete guide to jousting. So I was really hoping that we would cross the finish line while I was on this call with you guys.
It's so cool.
It's so sick.
We're $290 away. So
go support Complete Guide to Jousting. Support Complete Guide to Jousting. It's really awesome.
Oh my gosh. Are people watching this live right now?
No.
Well, you cheered and it went up. So I'm like, doing that.
It's just the power of positive thinking.
We are $150 away from funding now. So it's gonna happen today. I'm confident. Because Banners funded so quickly, we had so much muscle behind us. Nord Games was like our guardian angels on that project. It felt like it was supposed to go that way, right? We funded in 24 hours. I was disappointed in that. I wanted to fund in 10 minutes, right?
Hell yeah.
This one, we just got to 40. We're at 50 hours now, 50 hours into the project, $150 away from funding. And I'm always hungry for more. Whatever we do, I want to do better than that, So, yeah, there's a little bit of chip on my shoulder, but this project, it's not the same scale as Banners of Honor. It's a splat book. I understand the price point is lower. So even if we had the same number of backers, we wouldn't raise as much money, etc. So, man, I'm just learning. I have a small team that supports me, but it's for the most part, it's a one-man show. I'm doing a little bit of everything, if not, even if I have support on things. It's like I have a graphic designer. I also do graphic design. I have Sammy's my rules lawyer. I also do stat blocks and create, rule game mechanics. But the only thing I can't do is the 2D art. But like I said, I really enjoy sending the sketches and the prompts and then seeing the artwork come back. So I feel like I'm helping. Like I'm gonna take like 5% credit on this.
So go check out Complete Guide to Jousting for 5th edition on Kickstarter by Kefa Studios. Support artists and buy everything they make.
Thank you so much.